Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply human concept that affects, well, literally every single one of us. We all love overindulging from time to time, right? I mean, picture a sprawling, delicious buffet. It could be just too amazing to pass up, and we end up needlessly overindulging without really considering the consequences. But there is a fundamental rule of human biology that we just can't escape. The dose makes the poison. We tend to walk around believing that the things we encounter in our everyday lives pose no serious threat to our well-being. But today, we're going to look at how that assumption can sometimes be dead wrong.
It's a pretty provocative question, isn't it? Could your absolute favorite, seemingly harmless, everyday food actually kill you? The surprising truth is that almost anything can prove lethal if we don't consume it in moderation. We're going to look closely at 7 everyday items that, if you push it too far and have way too much of them, will literally shut your body down.
Section 1. Vices and Sweet Treats. Pushing the limits. All right, take alcohol for instance. We all kind of know the basics. Intoxication impairs your speech, it lowers your inhibitions, and of course it causes long-term health issues. But what's talked about a lot less is how drinking in rapid succession can completely shut down vital brain functions and trigger fatal alcohol poisoning. In fact, between 2006 and 2012, this kind of rapid consumption caused the deaths of almost 90,000 Americans. And honestly, it really doesn't take as much as you might think to trigger it. According to chemical compound studies, an average person only really needs to knock back 13 shots of 40% alcohol in a short window of time to die. Now, obviously, the exact number fluctuates based on things like a person's size and gender, but that biological limit, it is startlingly low.
Now, consider a habit most of us, myself included, rely on every single morning. To most of us, an excellent cup of coffee is just one of life's simple, tiny pleasures. Consuming 400 milligrams of caffeine each day, which is roughly 4 cups, is completely, totally harmless. Pushing it slightly past 500 milligrams might give you the jitters or some other negative side effects, but it isn't immediately deadly. But here's where it gets crazy. If you were to drink 50 to 100 cups of coffee in a single day, it could literally stop your heart. While it's highly unlikely for a normal person to casually drink that much, professional eating and drinking competitions do push these extreme human limits. There was actually one professional eater who famously consumed 42 cups of coffee in just a few minutes, inching terrifyingly close to that fatal threshold.
Okay, moving on to a much more delicious hazard, chocolate. As much as we'd all love to believe you can never have too much chocolate, the sad biological reality is you definitely can. You know how you always have to hide your Halloween candy from your dog? Well, there's a very specific reason for that. Chocolate contains a toxic chemical compound called theobromine. It's potent enough to easily poison and kill a small animal. But what most people don't realize is that we humans aren't totally immune to this ingredient either. We just metabolize it much better than our pets do.
But, just because we metabolize it better doesn't mean we're invincible. If you were to sit down and eat 85 full-size chocolate bars in a short amount of time, you would ingest a lethal dose of theobromine. I know, it sounds like a ridiculous challenge, but it's a stunning limit for anyone with a serious sweet tooth. If you want to keep enjoying chocolate for the rest of your life, you truly have to respect the biological limits of your body and, well, indulge in moderation.
Section 2. Everyday Pantry Hazards. The Hidden Dangers in Plain Sight.
Let's open the pantry door and look at some completely innocuous foods. Take bananas, for example. You might have heard those misguided rumors floating around the internet that eating more than 6 in one sitting could be poisonous because they contain potassium chloride. And yeah, that happens to be one of the chemicals used in lethal injections. But what's the actual biological reality here? Well, potassium is an essential mineral. It generates the electrical charge that is absolutely necessary for the proper function of every single cell in your body. You can't have too little, but you also can't have too much. To actually overdose and stop a healthy human heart, a regular person would need to eat 400 bananas in a single day. But keeping a humanistic perspective here, we do have to remember that patients with serious kidney problems face much higher risks. They simply lack the biological ability to filter out excess nutrients, meaning they have to be far more careful with potassium-rich foods than the rest of us.
Now let's look at the fatal dose of something we pretty much all crave, sugar. We all know that excessive consumption leads to long-term health issues, things like obesity, diabetes, and heart problems. But to kill an average adult immediately? According to the American Chemical Society, the magic, or rather tragic number is 10.5 cups of sugar. To put that into perspective, that equates to roughly 262 pieces of fun-size Halloween candy, or around 20,000 calories in one single sitting. And we absolutely have to keep our kids in mind here, because of their smaller build, this limit is significantly lower for them. Keeping a really close eye on kids during candy-filled holidays is essential to make sure a super fun day doesn't end in an emergency.
Next up is salt.
Pretty much all addicted to it because it makes absolutely everything taste better. But way beyond just flavor, the sodium in salt is quite literally keeping us alive right now. It naturally regulates the water entering and exiting our cells. However, when you dump way too much sodium into the body, water flows out of your cells through a process called osmosis, which basically causes those cells to shrink up. This leads to a severe electrolyte problem known as hypernatremia. The symptoms usually start off with weakness, lethargy, and some nausea, but severe cases rapidly escalate to confusion, seizures, a coma, and incredibly, even bleeding in the brain.
And you know, this is exactly why stranded sailors are always warned to never, ever drink seawater, no matter how desperately thirsty they get. For an immediate fatal dose, it only takes about 47 to 48 teaspoons of salt to kill a human being. The very ingredient that ensures our cells function properly will violently destroy them if that delicate balance is tipped just a little too far.
Section 3. When water becomes fatal. The ultimate irony.
So what happens when the very essence of life becomes the instrument of death? We are constantly told by everyone to stay hydrated, right? To replace the water we lose from sweating, going to the bathroom, and even just breathing. But can you actually drink too much of it? Take a second and just guess, how much water does it actually take to kill you? It leads to a condition known as water intoxication. Athletes are particularly at risk for this. In fact, during the 2002 Boston Marathon, a study found that a staggering 1/6 of the runners suffered from a mild form of this condition, displaying symptoms like nausea and vomiting. In extreme cases, though, it leads to serious neurological problems, seizures, and permanent brain damage.
The fatal number is roughly 6 liters. That is about 25 cups or 17 standard bottles of water consumed in a really short window of time. Your body simply becomes overwhelmed. It literally cannot process and eliminate the fluid fast enough, and the consequences for the human body are just devastating.
To truly understand the gravity of this, we really have to look at the deeply tragic human cost. Back in 2007, an infamous case of water intoxication happened during a radio competition out in California. A 28-year-old woman drank 6 liters of water in just under 3 hours trying to win a prize. On her way home, she complained of a severely painful headache, and tragically, just several hours later, she passed away. An investigation revealed that this massive, excessive consumption of water caused her brain and lungs to fatally swell. It is a really heartbreaking reminder that our biological limits apply to absolutely everything, even water.
Section 4. A painful, spicy lesson. Learning moderation the hard way.
Okay, let's break the tension just a little bit here with a highly relatable and honestly pretty embarrassing personal anecdote about ignoring the rules of moderation. Sometimes we don't face fatal consequences, thankfully, but our bodies firmly and painfully remind us exactly who is in charge. This comes directly from an experience of participating in the spiciest curry in the world contest. The challenge involved eating a giant plate of curry that was completely doused in the Carolina Reaper. And if you didn't know, until very recently, the Carolina Reaper held the undisputed title of the spiciest pepper on the entire planet. Eating it is just a pure assault on the human senses.
The aftermath was, well, unforgiving is putting it mildly. The exact quote from the experience is beautifully self-deprecating. "I vomited like a champ all over the sidewalk on somebody's lawn. I was just vomiting like that girl in The Exorcist." And it didn't end there. Upon finally getting home, the physical toll lasted for days. For the next 2 days, just trying to stand up resulted in this intense, room-spinning dizziness, forcing an immediate retreat right back to bed. It was a completely miserable, visceral lesson in why we simply cannot ignore our body's desperate need for limits, and also why participating in spicy eating contests with a Carolina Reaper is just a thoroughly bad idea. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a quick moment to reflect on your own pantry. What seemingly harmless thing in your kitchen are you suddenly looking at just a little bit differently? From coffee to chocolate, bananas to salt, and literally even the water we drink to stay alive, these things are perfectly safe and even essential in moderation. But they all serve as a really fascinating reminder of our shared human fragility. The biological rule stands undefeated. The dose truly makes the poison. Stay curious, stay mindful of your limits, and thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.